It was late 2019. After an intense round of budget cuts, I was left with half the staff and the same workload. Departments across my organization were in the same boat, one that's not unfamiliar to most municipalities. Having watched my friends and colleagues be walked out the door, I was motivated to find ways that my work could be used to increase the efficiencies of our operations and decrease costs to our community. Most of the services provided by municipalities are delivered using infrastructure assets, things like roads, water treatment plants, parks, and facilities, which you can see mapped for Parkland County. This is generally what we refer to as gray, hard, or traditional infrastructure, and is completely constructed by humans. As a rural municipality, our largest and most expensive asset is our road network, which includes drainage ditches and culverts. It spans almost 2,200 kilometers and will cost around $1.9 billion to build today. We dedicate about a quarter of our annual budget to road construction and maintenance, and that's around $37 million this year. These assets are so expensive, so you can see why they're so important to us. But what if I were to tell you that there's an underlying set of assets that we've been sitting on for years? Would you believe me if I said these assets were our natural ecosystems and that they're either undervalued by communities or not valued at all? These assets include things like lakes, rivers, forests, riparian areas, and they can be mapped similar to hard infrastructure. Now, what if I were to say that these assets can produce services similar to your constructed drainage network to protect our roads and even extend their lifespan? Would you believe me now? No? Well, you wouldn't be the first. So we decided to actually measure the potential costs and benefits that natural assets can have on our road and drainage network. These assets produce what we call ecosystem services. And that means that they're the benefits that humans derive from nature. We used a groundbreaking model developed by Dr. Wan-Hung Yang at the University of Guelph. It is able to predict how each individual natural asset, like a wetland or a riparian buffer, is able to produce 4 ecosystem services: water quality, water quantity, carbon sequestration, and biodiversity. The predictions are quantitative. For the engineers in the room, you're welcome, which means it gives us actual volumes of water flow and nutrient output, as well as the cost of restoration. It can be used to not only understand how much it would cost to achieve our goals, but also the exact location, type, and combination of natural assets that should be used to do this in the most land efficient and cost-effective way. Overall, it showed us that something as simple as a fence along a stream can make a big difference to our water supplies. The model looks specifically at agricultural practices that improve the health of natural assets. Now, this was perfect for our county because most of the land surrounding our roads is agricultural, and we were already delivering the ALICE program, which supports farmers and ranchers to actually use these practices. So, how do natural assets decrease the operating and capital costs in our road and drainage network, that $37 million a year I mentioned earlier? We had to build a business case for using proactive natural infrastructure solutions in combination with or in replacement of traditional gray infrastructure to protect our roads. Ideally, we wanted to estimate the cost of restoring natural assets and compare it to the cost of having to continually rely on maintenance and repairs of traditional infrastructure, while also investigating its potential to produce 4 benefits. Can they be used to extend the life cycles of our roads or to increase the services we provide to residents? Can we use them to decrease the design standards that we use, or are they good options for climate change adaptation? The large and dispersed nature of a rural road system means that it's often overlooked in similar studies. So we had to build a process from scratch. We started by mapping our drainage hotspots that were derived from our complaint database over top of our road infrastructure data. Complaints were sorted into 2 categories: limited capacity versus poor maintenance. Washouts caused by limited capacity to capture water are great options for natural infrastructure solutions because wetlands can act as water storage facilities and riparian areas help to slow down overland flow and increase absorption into the ground. The mapping identified 6 candidate locations, which you can see were dispersed across the watershed. At each washout site, the model was able to predict all possible upstream wetland and riparian area restoration opportunities and predicted the changes in water flow to the road once those were restored. The results were exciting. First, the impact natural assets can have is very site-specific and relied heavily on the amount of restoration opportunities in the upstream agricultural land. That meant that each site had vastly different results, but we do see some trends. Focusing in on the sites with the 3 sites with the greatest potential for impact, you can see the potential flow reduction in orange compared to the predicted peak flow for storms of increasing intensity in blue. The results? We were able to reduce flow anywhere from 13 to 55% just by restoring what nature had already provided us. This means less stress on our roads, lower requirements for maintenance and repairs, and lower capacity requirements for our drainage ditches and culverts, aka cost savings for our municipality. We also see a trend that with increasing storm severity, you get increasing benefit, flow reduction in this case. Now, hearing storm severity, I know you're thinking climate change. Although the largest storm we were able to evaluate was a 1 in 10 year due to data limitations, we do expect that in addition to the impacts natural assets can have on our current drainage challenges, they will also be great options for climate change adaptation in the future. But it's right about now that you're probably thinking, okay, but how much does it cost? Is it cheaper or is it more expensive than our current practices? The model used data from past projects to predict that the restoration would cost anywhere from $160,000 to $260,000 per site. Now, this is similar to the cost of one road and culvert repair project. But with natural assets, we are actually fixing the root cause of the issue rather than having to continually rely on reactive maintenance, repairs, and replacement, which makes them more cost-effective in the long run. On top of this, natural assets don't depreciate over time, and they don't have a life cycle replacement like built assets do. Our roads project is only one example of what these assets can do for our services and infrastructure in terms of both cost savings and quality of life for our municipality. In addition to this, we have only just started to understand the impact they can have on other built infrastructure systems and are only now starting to evaluate their potential for producing co-benefits. Things like improved agricultural yield due to better pollination and improvements or increases to our tourism and recreational revenues. The list really goes on. We are also using this study in different ways. For example, to set practical water quality targets and to prioritize our agricultural grants program. In this scenario, we assessed how and where to use various methods of on-farm riparian restoration in order to achieve an overarching water quality goal at the lowest cost. Now, I was really, really lucky to be able to do this project as part of a wonderful team of collaborators who were able to extend its reach to an entire watershed just upstream of the city of Edmonton. Outputs from that work have demonstrated that decisions made in rural areas can severely impact millions of people in downstream city centers and truly underline the importance of supporting our rural communities to conserve their natural assets. So as we start to get excited about what's next, let's take a step back and think big picture. What is the first thing you notice about this image? How would you describe the landscape? What you probably first noticed was that it's covered in a grid system of various size squares. Now, this is a tribute to the human tendency to organize and divide into straight lines and equal segments. But I want you to imagine what this landscape would have looked like before human settlement. Perhaps it would have looked something like this. As you can see, there are no perfect boxes or squares. Rivers flow in meandering patterns. Forests sprawl. The topography is curved. My point is that natural systems do not follow human boundaries or political borders. They flow through them, connecting communities upstream to downstream. And so do our impacts. They flow from upstream to downstream. This is why it is so critical for us to work with our municipal neighbors in order to evaluate our impacts from a watershed perspective. Simultaneously, we're also using this study to build business cases for investing in our community and have started to restore ecosystems on the ground. This past year, we finished our first wetland construction project, which will help to eliminate road washouts by increasing water storage. Showed a picture of that on our costing slide, as well as a shoreline bioengineering project, which will help to reduce erosion and sedimentation from our roadway into an important recreational lake. On this slide, you can see a wattle fence that can be used to replace a traditional retaining wall along a water body. And it's constructed entirely of willow and poplar stakes, which will grow into trees and hold the soil in place. We are actively incentivizing our producers to bring our theory to life by making changes in their operations that increase the health of natural assets. So, in 2018, I was sitting in your seat in this very room, watching presentations from the award winners of that year. I was inspired. I told myself that one day I'd be standing on the stage presenting on innovations that Parkland County had taken. Because of that experience, my goal today was to inspire at least one more municipal leader to start to think outside the box, to pursue natural infrastructure solutions to your municipal challenges. So, did I achieve my goal? Will that one leader be you? Thank you.